like to show you how I pan fry fish. Make a little gremolata, they'll sprinkle on the top, and also I'll make a little sauce out of the pan juices. And we'll serve that, I think, with some pea puree. So, I've got some fish that comes in a packet, which you just want to open. The reason to mention this is because you can see it's quite wet. And what I can tell you is, a dry skin makes a crispy skin. So you need to dry that skin. In fact, taking it out and laying it directly on the kitchen roll is a really good way of doing it too. So just fold it, put it on here. Just lay it on there, and I'm going to discard this. Now, to make sure it's really dry, I'm just going to leave it here to absorb as much water as possible. And while that's doing that, I'm going to make my gremolata. Now, gremolata is lemon zest, garlic, and chopped parsley. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to wash my unwaxed lemon. And then on the way back, I'm going to dry it. So there's my washed and dried lemon. And to zest, you literally rub that lemon up and down on your microplane. You want to do this before you juice it. Makes it much easier. I'm just taking the yellow skin off the lemon. I'm not going into the white pith. Can you see it's all still quite yellow? So you don't want to do it white. So I go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And while I'm doing it, I'm moving the lemon in my hand. So there is the zest. I pop that in a bowl. Scoop it up with a knife, gently. Get what's on the back of the zester, the microplane. Now in with that lemon zest goes a little bit of raw garlic. Cut the end off the clove, onto the blade. Peel back the skin, clear your board, crush your garlic. I'm going to re-crush this bit, make sure I get as much as I can. And then I'm going to give this a rinse. Now I'm going to chop some parsley. So you just want the leaves of this. I've got some stalks here, but we'll chop this way. So just chop it up. And those big stalks we'll keep for later. Then we'll use the rainbow. Chop the leaves. I like them quite fine in this instance because you want it to be able to sprinkle over the fish when it's cooked. So that's nice and fine. We'll put the parsley leaves in with the lemon and the garlic. And then once you've got it all in there, that's it. That's your gremolata. We're just going to mix it. Now I would just use my finger to stir this in. You just want to make sure the garlic is mixed in with the lemon and with the parsley. So that's perfect. I'm just going to clear up my board. I find that chopped parsley gets everywhere. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze my lemon because I want to use that to make the pan sauce. So once I've zested it, I'm going to give it a bit of a roll just to release those juices. And I'm going to cut it around its equator and give it a squeeze. Watch out for any cuts you might have in your hand, because sometimes that can hurt. Perfect. Now I'm just going to take out those pips. And then I'm going to use all of that on my pan sauce. So now I've got everything ready for my sauce. What I'm going to do is put my peas on to cook. So we've got the peas, and I'm literally going to put them into this pan with some boiling water. They've got a bit stuck to the bottom. There we go. I'm going to turn the heat on, and I'm going to get a kettle with some water in it. We're just going to let the peas cook until they're soft, but make sure they stay green. So the peas have been simmering away and they're now ready to be strained. I'm going to put a colander in the sink with a bowl underneath it, because what I want to do is catch that cooking liquid to use with the puree. I'm going to carry it all back to my chopping unit. I'm going to put the peas back in the pan. And we're going to add half the liquid. And I'm also going to add a little sprinkle of salt. And a little bit of butter. And what I'm going to use to puree this is a handheld blender. Now, I'm going to talk to you about health and safety of these things. Let me grab it. These pieces of kit are my big worry in the kitchen, because the thing is they have no protective guard on them. So you can see that blade there has no protection. And when it's plugged in and attached to the engine, you can hold these buttons here by mistake and that will go round, and you could have that anywhere. So I have some rules which I make sure people abide by, which is I plug it in and leave it off. Then I attach it. Then I put it into the pan, and it's not until that point that I turn it on, and then I start pressing the buttons. The buttons here are power and speed, and then this is how you release it. So the top two buttons are your speed. You've also got a dial up here, which is your minimum speed and maximum speed, and that indicates the speed which the blade goes around. So when you've got it all in, make sure it's firmly in your pan, okay? Do not turn it on until it's in the pan. And you press go. And to begin with, what I do is I pulse it. So then I've got a bit of a puree there. And then I'll press go. And I keep it in the pan. And I stir it. It has not come out of the pan yet. Now that's looking pretty good, but what I want to do is I want to taste it. So what I'm going to make sure I do is I turn this off here. Then I lift it out, knock off any excess, at which point I also unclip it. And at that point, I give it a bit of a taste. Remember, it's hot. I love pea puree, that tastes delicious. Okay, so that's absolutely perfect. If you want to puree it any further, or if you look at the consistency here, this is perfect. It's not going to run off the plate, but it's smooth enough and liquid enough to taste great. So, but if you wanted to puree it a little more, what you would do is put this back together again, put it back in to your pan, then turn it on, and then go. And at this point, you could add any more butter or water or salt. Anyway, don't take it out of the pan until you've turned it off At this point I know I'm ready. I'm even going to unplug it. So there's my lecture on a handheld blender with puree. Can be with anything. You can puree a compote, you can do anything with it, but just take care when you use a handheld blender. So I'm going to put this somewhere to keep warm while I prepare my fish, which is what I'm serving with this today. So you're going to pick up your fish here, which have had time to dry the skin. Just gently lift them off that kitchen roll. Can you see they're now all dry? So what you're going to do next is just drizzle them with a little oil. And then what you want to do is rub that oil into the skin, like that. And then what you need to do is, I'm just going to clean my hand. What you want to do with that now is season it with some salt and pepper. And then get your pan ready. So to get a nice crispy skin, what you want to do is a nice hot pan. So you want to get that some warmth underneath it. So as I say, put a tiny bit of oil in it, not very much because you've oiled the bottom of the fish. There you go, a little drizzle. And you want to use your hand just to see if you can get any heat from that. You know, the oil might start to smoke a bit. You don't want it smoking too much, to be honest. And you just want to shake that oil down the bottom of the pan and let it heat up. Fish is a really delicate protein, so the key with it is to only let the heat literally kiss the centre. So just to touch the middle. You don't want it to spend a lot of time there. So we've got some heat coming off this pan, which is great. I'm going to put these in skin side down. Skin side down because that's where your seasoning is. And this is your moment to season the other side. Just give your hands a bit of a clean. Season this side. Pepper. And a little bit of salt. Now I've got a really hot induction hob here, so I'm going to just turn mine off full. But if I was on my electric, I'd be on full for this. Now, you can either do what I do, which is press your fingers down in the middle of the fish, or, if you're not as desensitized as I am, use a spatula just to press down, and that just makes sure that the bottom of the fish is all on the bottom of the pan, which means it all gets crispy. Now you want to just have a little look under here and see if it's crisping up. Needs a little bit longer. But what I tend to do is I turn it over while it's still able. So while you can see here, it's getting white around the edges, which means that's what happens with the fish when it cooks, it goes white. Still dark here, that means it's not going to flake. So turn it over now and cook that other side just for a few seconds, maybe 15, depending on the heat of your pan. And then what I'm going to do is turn it back over. Because what I really want is I want the skin to be crispy and the flesh to be just cooked through. At this point, I'm going to add a little bit of butter. I'll turn my heat down a bit because it's smoking a lot. I'm going to lift it up off the heat a little bit actually. Now if yours isn't smoking like that, you don't need to. It's very important that you watch your heat down. I haven't put the butter in yet because actually it will burn. You can hear it cooling down a bit. Put it back on the heat. Now that's better. So it all calmed down a little bit. You want to put a little bit of butter in there. And you want it to melt. You don't want it to turn brown at this point. So that's absolutely perfect. So if things get too hot, don't be afraid just to take your pan straight off that heat. Now, what I want to do is show you how to tell when a piece of fish is cooked. Now, it wants to flake a little bit. It needs to be cooked. Okay, so you can see in here it's still a bit dark there, and that's raw. We're not far off. So I want to show you now it's done. So have a look. And you see that that's beginning to flake. Okay, and you can see that it's white, but that it's just slightly opaque still in there. And that is really perfect because it means the heat has kissed the centre, but it hasn't overcooked. What I'm going to do with this is put it directly on a plate. And then what I'm going to do, while it's nice and hot, you want to put your gremolata on it. Okay? Because the heat of the fish kind of brings out the aromatics of the parsley and the lemon and the garlic. And I'm going to keep that warm somewhere. So to make the pan sauce from the butter and the flavour that you've generated from frying your fish, you keep that butter, that oil in there. Sea bass seems to be quite oily actually as a fish. And then on a gentle heat, watch out, pop in that lemon juice from earlier. Tip in all that pith as well, I like that. Shake it, let it bubble off, and add a little bit of butter, which you then want to stir in. Now this would work with any fish. What I'm going to do with that, see it's just bubbling quietly, I'm going to give it a bit of a taste. Yum. I'm going to let it cook a little bit because it's still quite lemony, and I just want those natural sugars to sweeten a bit. If you didn't want to do it with lemon, you could do it with white wine or just a little bit of stock. It's cooked a little bit, I'm going to taste a little bit. Oh, it's pretty intense. So if you want to dilute it a little bit, you can add a splash of water. Oh, that's good. That's really good. So that is a pan sauce. So I've got my warm fish here. And what you can do is literally pour a little bit of that sauce on top. A little bit goes a long way because of the length, because of the strength of the lemon. And I think this piece of fried sea bass would taste amazing with the pea puree. Just, it's a black plate, so you need to clean it. So there it is. There is some pan-fried sea bass with a gremolata and a pan sauce and some pea puree. Absolutely fabulous.